Columbus discovered America. You stand in a classroom staring at a map showing 3 ships sailing toward an empty continent. The teacher tells you Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. You memorize the date, you move on. But here's what they don't tell you. An estimated 100 million people were already living here. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy had a functioning democracy that would later influence the U.S. Constitution. The Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan held 200,000 people, larger than any European city at the time. The Inca had engineered suspension bridges, brain surgery techniques, and an empire spanning 2,500 miles without using wheels or written language as Europeans understood it. Columbus didn't discover anything. He got lost looking for India, landed in the Bahamas, enslaved the Taino people he encountered, and initiated a genocide so complete that within 50 years, the Taino population dropped from an estimated 250,000 to practically zero. You can't discover a place where millions already live, build cities, govern themselves, and have done so for thousands of years. Yet the word discover stays in textbooks because it frames colonization as adventure rather than invasion. Vikings wore horned helmets. You picture a Viking, massive, bearded, helmet crowned with curved horns. The image is everywhere. Movies, Halloween costumes, sports logos. It's completely false. Not a single authentic Viking helmet with horns has ever been found. Archaeological evidence shows Vikings wore simple, practical iron helmets, some with face guards, designed for actual combat where horns would be a fatal liability. An enemy could grab them, twist your neck, leave you exposed. The horned helmet myth came from an 1876 opera production of Wagner's Der Ring des Nibelungen. The costume designer thought horns looked dramatic. They did. The image stuck. But here's what matters. This lie makes Vikings seem like primitive barbarians rather than what they were. Expert sailors who navigated open ocean using sun compasses and sophisticated understanding of currents. Craftsmen who created intricate metalwork and complex legal codes. Traders who established routes from Baghdad to North America. The Althing, their parliamentary assembly established in 930 CE, is one of the world's oldest surviving parliaments. The horned helmet image reduces them to cartoon violence, erasing a nuanced seafaring culture that connected continents. Napoleon was short. You hear Napoleon complex and picture a tiny, angry man compensating for his height by conquering Europe. Everyone knows Napoleon was short, except he wasn't. Napoleon stood about 5'7", completely average for a French man in the early 1800s, actually slightly above average. The confusion came from differences between French and English measurements. French inches were longer than English inches. Reports of his height in French units translated to English made him sound diminutive. British propaganda seized this during the Napoleonic Wars, publishing cartoons showing him as a tiny, impotent figure. The caricatures worked. They dehumanized an enemy, made him seem less threatening, turned military genius into joke. Here's what the short myth obscures. Napoleon revolutionized military tactics, created the Napoleonic Code that forms the basis of civil law in dozens of countries, established public education systems, championed meritocracy over aristocratic birth. The short myth lets you dismiss him as a case study in overcompensation, rather than confront the complex legacy of someone who was simultaneously a tyrant and a transformative force in modern political history. The Great Wall is visible from space. You learn this fact in elementary school. The Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space. It sounds impressive. Astronauts have repeatedly confirmed it's false. The wall is narrow, made of materials that blend with the surrounding landscape, and from low Earth orbit, you can't see it without magnification. You can see cities, highways, airports. But the wall? No. The myth likely started in 1938 when Richard Halliburton wrote that the wall was visible from the moon. No one had been to the moon yet. He was speculating. The claim entered textbooks anyway. Here's the real story. The Great Wall is not one wall, but many walls built over centuries by different dynasties, spanning roughly 13,000 miles in total. Construction killed hundreds of thousands of workers. Bodies were sometimes mixed into the wall itself. It didn't really work as a defense. Invaders regularly found ways through, over, or around it. The Mongols conquered China despite the wall. The wall's real significance isn't its visibility from space, but what it represents, the human cost of monumental projects, and the ultimate futility of walls against determined enemies. Einstein failed math. You sit in math class, struggling with equations, and the teacher offers comfort. Even Einstein failed math. If he could overcome it, so can you. Except Einstein never failed math. By age 15, he had mastered differential and integral calculus. He excelled at mathematics throughout his education. The myth comes from a confusion about grading systems. Switzerland, where Einstein attended school, reversed its grading scale in 1896. A 1 became the worst grade instead of the best. Looking at his report cards without understanding this change makes it appear he failed when he actually excelled. Einstein himself addressed this rumor saying, "I never failed in mathematics. Before I was 15, I had mastered differential and integral calculus. Here's why the lie matters." It creates a false narrative about genius. It suggests Einstein succeeded despite being bad at math, rather than because he was exceptional at it. This comforts struggling students temporarily, but ultimately misleads them about what achievement requires. Einstein didn't succeed through pure abstract thought, disconnected from mathematical skill. He succeeded because he combined physical intuition with rigorous mathematical ability, spent years teaching himself advanced mathematics. The failed math myth suggests genius just happens. The truth is harder. Genius is built through relentless study and profound discipline. Witches were burned in Salem. You picture Salem, women tied to stakes, flames rising, crowds watching. Everyone knows what happened, except no one was burned in Salem. Of the 20 people executed during the 1692 trials, 19 were hanged and one, an 80-year-old man named Giles Corey, was pressed to death with heavy stones over 2 days because he refused to enter a plea. Burning witches was a European practice, particularly in Germany and Scotland. In colonial America, hanging was the standard method of execution. Here's what actually happened in Salem. A group of young girls began having fits, convulsions, claiming invisible forces attacked them. In a community already fractured by political disputes, economic anxieties, and fear of Native American attacks, these accusations exploded. Most of the accused were women who didn't fit acceptable social roles. Too independent, too outspoken, too wealthy, too poor, too old. The Salem trials weren't about religion alone, but about power, property, and gender. Correcting the burning myth matters because the real details are more disturbing. Hanging is intimate, community-based. Townspeople gathered. They watched people they knew die. The burning myth creates distance, makes it seem foreign, not American, but Salem was American. The pyramids were built by slaves. You imagine thousands of slaves dragging massive stones across the desert, whipped by overseers, dying in the sand. Even Hollywood reinforces this, except the pyramids weren't built by slaves. Archaeological evidence discovered in the 1990s shows they were built by paid workers, skilled laborers who lived in nearby villages with medical care, good food, and proper burial rites. The workers' cemetery near the Giza pyramids reveals bones that received medical treatment, diets rich in meat and beer, tomb inscriptions showing pride in their work. These were craftsmen, engineers, farmers who worked during flood season. Workers left graffiti on the stones, team names like the Drunkards of Menkaure or Friends of Khufu, suggesting camaraderie between groups. Here's why this myth persists. It fits a narrative about ancient civilizations being barbaric, requiring slavery for great achievements. It also absolves later slave-holding societies by suggesting slavery was always universal. The truth complicates things. The pyramids required organization, skill, voluntary participation from people who believed in their pharaoh's divinity. The myth makes the pyramids simple, evidence of cruelty. The reality makes them complex, evidence of human organizational capacity, religious devotion, engineering brilliance achieved through social cooperation. Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." You hear the phrase and immediately understand aristocratic indifference. Marie Antoinette, told the peasants have no bread, responds, "Let them eat cake." She never said it. The phrase appears in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's autobiography, written when Marie Antoinette was 10 years old, attributed to a great princess, identity unclear. The quote was likely fabricated, used as revolutionary propaganda. Marie Antoinette was unpopular for many reasons. She was Austrian during French-Austrian tension, spent lavishly during economic crisis, became the face of royal excess. But this quote crystallizes complex political failures into one moment of casual cruelty. Here's what actually happened. France faced massive debt, crop failures caused bread shortages, the tax system crushed peasants while exempting nobility. Marie Antoinette was a symbol of everything wrong, but she didn't control grain prices or tax policy. She was 14 when she arrived in France, married off for political alliance. Let them eat cake gives you a villain, a moment you can point to. It's simpler than explaining cascading economic failures. The fake quote teaches you that revolutions happen because of individual moral failures rather than systemic collapse. Washington had wooden teeth. You picture the first president with a mouth full of wooden dentures. It's taught in schools, part of his legend. Completely false. Washington had terrible teeth. By his inauguration, he had only one natural tooth remaining, but his dentures were made from hippopotamus ivory, human teeth, horse teeth, and metal fasteners. Some of the human teeth likely came from enslaved people. The wooden teeth myth probably came from ivory staining over time. But here's what the story obscures. Washington, who wrote about liberty, wore dentures partially constructed from teeth of people he enslaved. He complained constantly about tooth pain, described the humiliation of his appearance. Meanwhile, people he owned as property provided materials meant to restore his dignity. The wooden teeth myth is gentle, almost quaint. It lets you sympathize with Washington without confronting the brutality of the system he participated in. It makes his dental problems seem quirky, rather than a physical manifestation of slavery's integration into every aspect of American life. This is a small lie, but it represents how history gets sanitized, how uncomfortable truths get replaced with palatable myths. The Dark Ages were dark. You learn that after Rome fell, Europe plunged into centuries of ignorance and violence. Then the Renaissance arrived, bringing back light. This narrative dominates education. It's misleading. The term Dark Ages originally referred to a lack of historical sources, not actual darkness. The era from roughly 500 1000 CE saw tremendous developments: preservation of classical texts by monks, new agricultural techniques, creation of universities. The Islamic Golden Age flourished during this period, making advances in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The Byzantine Empire continued Roman traditions. The Vikings reached North America centuries before Columbus. China's Tang and Song dynasties pioneered gunpowder and the compass. The darkness was largely a European phenomenon, and even there, less dark than portrayed. Here's why this myth persists. It creates a narrative where European Christianity saves civilization. Then European science saves it again. It positions Europe at the center of all progress. This obscures reality. Civilization never disappeared. It moved, changed forms, flourished in places Western history ignores. The Dark Ages myth teaches you that progress is linear and Western. The truth is more complex. Human knowledge is resilient, surviving in unexpected places. When one civilization struggles, others advance.